Friends, before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to my channel, hit the notification bell so you never miss a new audiobook, and give this video a thumbs up. Thank you in advance. The Genesis epic, Isaac and Jacob, the birth of Israel. I am the chronicler of the generations, the keeper of the upright record, the Sefer ha-Yashar. I speak of the path trod by the fathers, of covenants carved into the fabric of the world, and of a promise that flickered like a single flame in a great wind, a flame that would not be extinguished. Listen, and you shall hear the tale of the chosen line, of the laughter that became a nation, and the struggle that forged its name. The world was old, and Abraham was older still. The promise had been given, that his offspring would be as countless as the stars, that through them all families of the earth would be blessed. Yet, the tent of Abraham and Sarah remained a place of silence, a hallowed space empty of the laughter of a child. The years piled upon them like desert sand, each grain a moment of waiting, each sunrise a test of the divine word. Sarah's heart, once a well of hope, had become a sealed tomb. Abraham's faith was a deep, still root, but even roots long for the rain. Then came the three visitors, men who were more than men, standing in the heat of the day by the oaks of Mamre. They spoke the impossible. I will surely return to you when the season revives, one said, his voice holding the weight of creation, and behold, Sarah your wife shall have a son. From within the tent, Sarah heard. And she laughed. It was not a laugh of joy, but a bitter, hollow sound born from a lifetime of barrenness, a laugh that echoed with the ache of a promise deferred for 100 years. She laughed to herself, within the quiet of her soul, for her body was withered and Abraham's was as good as dead. But the visitor heard the unspoken. Why did Sarah laugh? He said to Abraham. Is anything too wondrous for the Lord? Fear seized her then, and she denied it. I did not laugh. But the voice, gentle yet unyielding, replied, No, but you did laugh. The words hung in the air, a divine contradiction to the evidence of the senses. And then, the visitors departed, leaving behind them the scent of ozone and a silence that thrummed with possibility. The seasons turned. The life within Sarah's womb, against all nature, against all reason, began to quicken. It was a quiet miracle, a secret swelling in a world that did not know it was being remade. In the appointed time, as the word had been spoken, the promise was made flesh. Sarah conceived and bore a son to Abraham in his old age. And when the child was placed in her arms, all the years of sorrow fell away like a forgotten dream. She looked upon the face of her son, and her laughter now was a river of pure, untainted joy. God has made laughter for me, she declared, her voice strong with a newfound reverence. Everyone who hears will laugh with me. And they named him Yitzhak, Isaac, he laughs. For in his birth, the laughter of disbelief was transformed into the laughter of fulfillment. The boy grew under the vast, star-strewn canopy of the Negev. He was the living, breathing proof of the covenant. Abraham looked upon his son, this child of his 100th year, and saw the future. He saw the stars in Isaac's eyes, the sands of the shore and the dust on his feet. In the quiet of the tent, in the heat of the day, the promise was no longer a distant echo, it was a boy learning to walk, a voice learning to speak. But a shadow fell across this sun-drenched certainty. A command, stark and terrifying, descended upon Abraham. A test, the chronicler writes, from the Lord. Take now your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Offer him there as a burnt offering upon one of the mountains of which I shall tell you. The words were a blade to the soul. The promise was Isaac. To destroy Isaac was to annihilate the promise, to make a mockery of the laughter, to extinguish the very star he had been commanded to count. Yet, Abraham did not hesitate. His faith was a terrible, awesome thing. It was not a blind faith, but a faith that saw the abyss and trusted the one who had called him across it. He knew the one who promised life from the dead could also sustain the promise through death itself. In the grim, gray light of dawn, he arose. He split wood for the offering. He looked at his son, the beloved, and said nothing of the storm in his heart. With 2 young men and Isaac, he set out. For 3 days they journeyed, the silence between father and son a chasm filled with unspoken dread. Isaac, now a youth on the cusp of manhood, carried the fire. Abraham carried the knife and the fire in his heart. On the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place, far off. A mountain, stark and lonely against the sky. He said to the young men, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will go over there and worship, and we will return to you." We will return. The words were a prophecy, a confession of a hope that defied the command. So Abraham took the wood of the burnt offering and laid it on Isaac his son. He himself carried the fire and the knife. And the 2 of them walked on together, their footsteps the only sound in the sacred silence. Then Isaac spoke, his voice cleaving the heavy air. "My father?" And Abraham said, "Here I am, my son." "Behold," said Isaac, his eyes taking in the wood, the fire, the knife, but finding no lamb. "Where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" The question hung between them, a moment of exquisite agony. Abraham's heart must have shattered within his breast. But his voice was steady, a rock in the torrent. "God will provide for himself the lamb for a burnt offering, my son." And they went, both of them, on together. They came to the place of which God had told him. There, Abraham built an altar. He laid the wood in order. Then, with a resolve that echoes through eternity, he bound Isaac his son and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. The father's hands, the hands that had lifted his infant son, that had taught him to hold a staff, now bound him for death. Isaac did not struggle. The trust in his father's eyes was a mirror of Abraham's trust in his God. Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven. "Abraham! Abraham!" And he said, "Here I am." And the angel said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him, for now I know that you fear God, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." Abraham looked up, and behold, caught in a thicket by its horns, was a ram. A substitute. A provision. So he went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering in place of his son. And Abraham called the name of that place, "The Lord will provide," as it is said to this day, "On the mount of the Lord it shall be provided." The voice of the angel called a second time from heaven, the words ringing from the stone of the mountain, sealing the covenant anew. "By myself I have sworn, declares the Lord, because you have done this and have not withheld your son, your only son, I will surely bless you, and I will surely multiply your offspring as the stars of heaven and as the sand that is on the seashore. And your offspring shall possess the gate of his enemies, and in your offspring shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. The promise, tested in the fire, was now unbreakable. The laughter had not been silenced, it had been redeemed. And the two of them, father and son, descended the mountain. They descended together, back into the land of the living, back into the story that was only just beginning. The air was secure. The line would continue. But the memory of the knife, and the ram, and the voice from heaven, would be etched into the soul of Isaac forever. He had been given life, not once, but twice. And he knew the cost. And so Abraham and Isaac descended from the mountain of the Lord, bound by a covenant forged in fire and reprieve. They returned to the land of Beersheba, to the tents of their people, and the rhythm of life resumed. But Isaac was a man marked by the altar. A solemnity clung to him, a depth born from having been both the offering and the redeemed. He was the quiet patriarch, the son of the great Abraham, the vessel of a promise that now flowed in his blood. In the fullness of time, Sarah, the mother of nations, breathed her last. Her laughter was now a memory woven into the tapestry of their lineage. Abraham, bowed with grief and years, knew his own time was waning. But the promise demanded continuity. The chosen line could not end with Isaac, who now dwelt in the Negev, a man of tense and quiet contemplation, his heart turned inward toward the God of his father. Abraham, ever faithful, turned his mind to the future. He called his eldest servant, the steward of all he possessed, a man of proven loyalty and faith. Placing a hand on the servant's shoulder, in the dim light of the tent, Abraham gave him a sacred charge. "Put your hand under my thigh, that I may make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and God of the earth, that you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but will go to my country and to my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac." The oath was sworn, a solemn vow that bound the servant to a quest of divine importance. The promise was not to be diluted by the peoples of the land, its purity must be preserved. The servant took 10 of his master's camels, laden with all manner of choice gifts from Abraham's wealth, and set his face toward the city of Nahor in Mesopotamia, the land of Abraham's brother. After a long and wearying journey, the servant arrived at the well outside the city, where the daughters of the men of the city came to draw water in the cool of the evening. The camels knelt, groaning with thirst. The servant stood, a solitary figure against the vast sky, and he prayed a prayer of specific faith. "O Lord, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the young woman to whom I shall say, 'Please let down your jar that I may drink,' and who shall say, 'Drink, and I will water your camels also,' let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master." Before the words had fully left his lips, behold, Rebekah came out, the daughter of Bethuel, who was the son of Milcah and Nahor, Abraham's brother. She was beautiful in countenance, a virgin whom no man had known. She carried her water jar upon her shoulder with a graceful strength. She went down to the spring, filled her jar, and came up. The servant ran to meet her. "Please give me a little water to drink from your jar." And she said, with a kindness that was more than mere courtesy, "Drink, my lord." And she quickly let down her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, "I will draw water for your camels also, until they have finished drinking." She did not hesitate. She emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw water for all 10 of his camels. The servant watched her, his heart stilled in awe. He watched as this young woman performed the very sign he had asked for, a sign not only of kindness but of a formidable, generous spirit. To water 10 thirsty camels was no small labor, it was the work of a steadfast heart. When the camels had finished drinking, the servant took a gold ring and 2 gold bracelets for her arms. "Whose daughter are you?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Please tell me, is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night?" She answered, "I am the daughter of Bethuel the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor." And she added, "We have plenty of both straw and provender, and room to spend the night." Then the servant bowed his head and worshipped the Lord. "Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman." Rebekah ran and told her mother's household about these things. Her brother Laban, seeing the ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms, and hearing her words, ran out to the man at the spring. He found him still standing by the camels at the well. "Come in, O blessed of the Lord," Laban said. "Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and a place for the camels." So the man came to the house, and Laban unharnessed the camels and gave them straw and provender. Water was brought to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. But food was set before him, and he said, "I will not eat until I have told my errand." And he told them everything. He spoke of Abraham's wealth and God's blessing. He spoke of Isaac, the son of promise. He recounted his prayer at the well, word for word, and the immediate, precise appearance of Rebekah. Then I asked her, "Whose daughter are you?" And she said, "The daughter of Bethuel, son of Nahor, whom Milcah bore to him." So I put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her arms. Then I bowed my head and worshipped the Lord and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who had led me by the right way to take the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. Now then, if you are going to show steadfast love and faithfulness to my master, tell me, and if not, tell me, that I may turn to the right hand or to the left. Laban and Bethuel could not argue with the hand of providence so clearly revealed. They answered, "The thing has come from the Lord, we cannot speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you, take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken." When Abraham's servant heard their words, he bowed himself to the earth before the Lord. Then he brought out jewelry of silver and of gold, and garments, and gave them to Rebekah. He also gave to her brother and to her mother costly ornaments. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank and spent the night there. In the morning, the servant arose, intent on his mission. "Send me away to my master." But Rebekah's brother and mother pleaded, "Let the young woman remain with us a while, at least 10 days, after that she may go." But he said to them, Do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. Send me away that I may go to my master." They called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" And she, with a courage that matched her kindness, answered with a single, fateful word. "I will go." So they sent away Rebekah their sister and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, "Our sister, may you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gate of those who hate them." Then Rebekah and her young women arose and rode on the camels and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebekah and went his way, leading her to the son of the promise. Now Isaac had gone out into the field one evening to meditate. He was a man of the open spaces, his soul attuned to the whispers of the wind and the silent testimony of the stars. He lifted up his eyes and saw, behold, camels were coming. And Rebekah lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted quickly from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is that man, walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself, a gesture of modesty and betrothal. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. How the Lord had made his journey a success, how the sign had been given, how the family had consented, how Rebekah had chosen to come. Then Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah his mother. He took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. In the very tent where the laughter of disbelief had turned to the laughter of joy, a new love was kindled. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. The promise had found its vessel, and the line was secure. The quiet man and the courageous woman were united, and in their union, the destiny of nations quietly, patiently, began to unfold. And so Isaac and Rebekah dwelt in the land of Canaan, their lives a testament to the faithfulness of the God of Abraham. The promise was now their inheritance, a weight and a wonder that filled their tents. For 20 years, they lived with this hope, a hope that began to feel like a reproach. For Rebekah was barren. The silence in her womb was an echo of Sarah's long-ago sorrow. Isaac, the child of the impossible, now faced the same impossible void. But he had learned faith from his father. He did not despair. He took the matter to the only one who could open the closed womb. Isaac pleaded with the Lord on behalf of his wife, his prayers a constant, persistent incense rising from the fields where he walked with God. He did not rage, he entreated. He remembered the ram in the thicket. He remembered the laughter. He held fast to the promise, even when the evidence of the world mocked it. And the Lord was entreated by him. Rebekah, his wife, conceived. But the joy of conception was swiftly overshadowed by a terrible turmoil within her. The children struggled together within her, a violent, churning conflict that made her cry out, "If it is thus, why is this happening to me?" The very life within her felt like a war, a battle for supremacy that threatened to tear her apart. She went to inquire of the Lord, seeking a word in her distress, a meaning to the chaos. And the Lord said to her, a divine pronouncement that would define generations. 2 nations are in your womb. And 2 peoples from within you shall be divided. The one shall be stronger than the other. The older shall serve the younger. The words were stark, unequivocal. The struggle was not merely between 2 brothers, but between 2 destinies. The divine choice was declared before their birth, appending the natural order of inheritance. The elder would serve the younger. The promise would not flow by primogeniture, but by election. When her days to give birth were completed, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came out red, all his body like a hairy cloak, a being of raw, earthy vigor. They called his name Esau, hairy. After him his brother came out, his hand holding Esau's heel, as if even in the moment of birth he was striving, grasping for precedence. So his name was called Jacob, he takes by the heel, or he supplants. The boys grew. And as they grew, the prophecy etched itself into their very natures. Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field, a creature of impulse and immediacy. His soul was fed by the chase, the kill, the taste of game. He was his father's favorite, for Isaac had a taste for the wild meat he brought, and perhaps he saw in Esau's untamed strength a simpler, more tangible kind of power. But Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. His world was one of order, of strategy, of the patient rhythms of the herd and the hearth. His mind was sharp, contemplative, his eyes seeing not just what was, but what could be. He was the keeper of the birthright, the one who understood the weight of the promise, even if his methods to secure it were flawed. He was his mother's favorite, for Rebekah remembered the divine word and saw in Jacob the vessel of the covenant. The tension between them was a slow-burning fuse, waiting for a spark. It came on a day when Jacob had cooked a stew, a red lentil stew, rich and fragrant. Esau came in from the field, and he was exhausted, faint with a hunger that felt like death. The smell of the stew was a siren's call. "Let me eat some of that red stew, for I am exhausted," he said to Jacob, his voice ragged. Jacob, seeing his moment, saw not just a hungry brother, but the fulfillment of a destiny. His voice was calm, deliberate. "Sell me your birthright now." The birthright. The double portion of inheritance, the spiritual and temporal leadership of the family, the custody of the covenant promise. To Esau, in that moment of gnawing hunger, it was an abstraction, a distant, meaningless formality. What was a title against the roaring need in his belly? "I am about to die," Esau said, his words dripping with a dramatic, short-sighted despair. "Of what use is a birthright to me?" Jacob pressed him. "Swear to me now." So Esau swore to him, a casual oath that sold his birthright to Jacob. He gave away the promise of God for a bowl of red lentil stew and a piece of bread. He ate and drank, and rose, and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. The chronicler records this with solemn gravity. He traded his divine destiny for a momentary appetite. He was a man of the immediate, and the eternal meant nothing to him. But Jacob, for all his cunning, had secured only the legal right. The spoken blessing, the patriarchal decree that would enact the transfer of power and prosperity, still belonged to Isaac. And Isaac was old, his eyes dim so that he could not see. The time of blessing was near. The stage was set for the great deception, an act born of a mother's faith and a son's ambition, an act that would fracture a family and set in motion a divine reckoning. The air in the tents grew thick with anticipation and fear. Rebekah watched her husband, she watched her sons, and she remembered the words spoken to her in her pain. "The older shall serve the younger." The promise must be secured. And if it required a desperate, morally fraught gambit, then she, Rebekah, would be the one to orchestrate it. The quiet struggle in the womb was about to erupt into the open, under the dim, blind eyes of the patriarch, in the shadow of the promise. The silence in the tents of Isaac was a heavy cloak, woven with the scent of old earth and impending mortality. Isaac was old, ancient of days, and his eyes had grown so dim that he lived in a perpetual twilight. He called to Esau, his firstborn, the son whose visceral, earthy presence was a comfort to him. "My son," he said, his voice a dry rustle. And Esau answered, "Here I am." Isaac spoke words that held the weight of ritual, the prelude to a sacred transfer. "Behold now, I am old, I do not know the day of my death. Now therefore, take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt game for me, and prepare for me delicious food, such as I love, and bring it to me so that I may eat, that my soul may bless you before I die." It was a solemn charge. The blessing was more than a wish, it was a creative force, a patriarchal decree that would set the course of destiny, allocating prosperity, authority, and divine favor. Isaac, though he may have known of the traded birthright, intended to bestow this ultimate gift upon Esau, the son of his affections. But Rebekah was listening. As the words left her husband's lips, a cold dread and a fierce resolve seized her heart. The divine oracle echoed in her memory, "The older shall serve the younger." The time for passive waiting was over. The promise was in jeopardy. She moved with a swift, desperate cunning. She found Jacob, the quiet man of the tents, and her words were urgent, a whispered conspiracy. "Behold, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau, saying, 'Bring me game and prepare for me delicious food, that I may eat it and bless you before the Lord before my death. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 good young goats, so that I may prepare from them delicious food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, so that he may bless you before he dies." Jacob, the strategist, saw the flaw, the terrifying risk. His voice was a low tremor of fear. "Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall seem to be mocking him and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing." His mother's reply was swift, ruthless in its practicality. She would bear the brunt of any curse. "Let your curse be on me, my son, only obey my voice, and go, bring them to me." Jacob, stepping fully into the deception, invoked the name of the Lord, a chilling act of sacrilege to sanctify a fraud. "Because the Lord your God granted me success." But Isaac's other senses were sharpened by his blindness. "Come near, please, that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not." Jacob approached his father. Isaac felt him. The hands, sheathed in the rough, hairy goatskins, felt like the hands of Esau. But the voice troubled him. "The voice is the voice of Jacob," the old man mused, "but the hands are the hands of Esau." He was caught in the sensory contradiction his wife had engineered. He asked once more, a final, feeble attempt at certainty. "Are you really my son Esau?" And Jacob, his fate balanced on the edge of this lie, answered, "I am." So Isaac ate of the meat, and he drank the wine his son brought. Then he said, come near and kiss me, my son." As Jacob came near and kissed him, Isaac smelled the smell of his garments, the scent of the field, the aroma of Esau. It was the final confirmation. Then Isaac breathed in deeply, and the spirit of prophecy descended upon him. His blindness became a conduit for a vision of the future. He blessed Jacob, and his voice was no longer that of a feeble old man, but the resonant voice of the patriarch, speaking destiny. "Ah, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of the dew of heaven, and of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let peoples serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you." The words fell upon Jacob like a mantle of irrevocable power. The blessing was spoken. The covenant promise was now formally, divinely, his. He had stolen it, yes, but it had been given. He slipped away from his father's presence, the weight of his prize and his guilt crushing him. He had scarcely left when Esau returned from his hunting. He too prepared delicious food and brought it to his father. "Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that your soul may bless me." Isaac was confused, a tremor of dreadful understanding shaking his aged frame. "Who are you?" "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Then Isaac trembled violently, a great and terrible shaking that seemed to come from the core of the earth. "Who was it, then, that hunted game and brought it to me, and I ate it all before you came, and I have blessed him? Yes, and he shall be blessed." The words were a death knell to Esau's hopes. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry. "Bless me, even me also, O my father." His voice was a raw wound, the cry of a man who had lost everything he thought was his by right. But Isaac could only answer, "Your brother came deceitfully, and he has taken away your blessing." Esau's despair curdled into a white-hot hatred. "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing." Then, a desperate, pathetic plea, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Isaac, his heart breaking, could only speak of the consequences now set in stone. "Behold, I have made him lord over you, and all his brothers I have given to him for servants, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son?" Esau wept now, great, heaving sobs of loss and rage. "Do you have only one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father." So Isaac, moved by his son's anguish, uttered a secondary, lesser blessing, a prophecy of a life lived in the shadow of the chosen one. "Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you shall break his yoke from your neck." It was a blessing of the sword, not the scepter, of struggle, not sovereignty. Esau would be a power, but a subsidiary one. He would live by his strength, but he would serve. Esau seethed. The words of the blessing were a prison. He hated Jacob with a hatred that demanded blood. He said in his heart, "The days of mourning for my father are approaching, then I will kill my brother Jacob." The words of Esau, her elder son, were told to Rebekah. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced her soul. The promise was secure, but the vessel was in mortal danger. She had set these events in motion, and now she would set in motion the flight that would save her son. She called Jacob. "Behold, your brother Esau comforts himself about you by planning to kill you. Now therefore, my son, obey my voice. Arise, flee to Laban my brother in Haran. Stay with him a while, until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. Then I will send and bring you from there." The plan was set. The deceiver must now become the fugitive. The one who had grasped for a blessing would now flee for his life, leaving behind the land of the promise, the tents of his father, and the mother who had engineered his destiny. The path to the birthright led through exile. The story of the patriarch was now a story of flight, leading toward a lonely ladder under a starry sky, and a confrontation with God in the wilderness. The taste of the stolen blessing was ash in Jacob's mouth. The mantle of destiny felt like a shroud. His father's tent, once a place of quiet order, was now a cage of fear. Rebekah's words were a desperate whisper in the gloom, a plan for survival that felt like a sentence. He was to flee. To run from the land of the promise, from the inheritance he had schemed so hard to secure, and from the brother whose wrath was a gathering storm. He went to his father, Isaac, the man he had deceived. The old man, broken by the fracture in his family, understood the necessity. He confirmed the flight, but he gave it a sacred purpose. He blessed Jacob again, this time with clear eyes and a heavy heart, sending him to Paddan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, Rebekah's father, to take a wife from the daughters of Laban, her brother. "May El Shaddai bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you," Isaac said, his voice frail but resolute, "that you may become a company of peoples. May he give the blessing of Abraham to you and to your offspring with you, that you may take possession of the land of your sojournings that God gave to Abraham." The covenant was reaffirmed. The fugitive was still the heir. So Jacob turned his back on Beersheba and set his face toward Haran. He was alone, a solitary figure on the vast, stony spine of the land. The sun beat down upon him, and the wind, a constant companion, seemed to mock his solitude. He carried nothing but the staff in his hand and the weight of his choices. He had the blessing, but he had no home. He had the promise, but he was in exile. As the sun began to set, casting long, skeletal shadows across the wilderness, he came to a certain place. It was no city, no sanctuary, merely a patch of stony ground. He took one of the stones of the place and put it under his head, a hard pillow for a troubled soul. And he lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed. Behold, a ladder was set on the earth, and its top reached to heaven. This was no structure built by human hands, it was a cosmic conduit, a bridge between the dust and the divine. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. They moved in a silent, majestic procession, their forms shimmering with a light not of the sun or moon, connecting the realm of man with the throne of the Almighty. And behold, the Lord stood above it. Not a distant, indifferent deity, but the God of his fathers, present and speaking. His voice was the foundation of the world. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and to your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south, and in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Behold, I am with you and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. The words washed over Jacob's sleeping spirit, a balm and a confirmation. The promise given to Abraham, reaffirmed to Isaac, was now given to him, the deceiver, the fugitive. And with it came the assurance that defined his life from that moment forward, I am with you. He was not alone in his exile. The God of the latter would be his companion. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep. A profound awe, a holy fear, gripped him. The world was not as it had been. The very ground was charged with divinity. Surely the Lord is in this place, he whispered into the dawn, and I did not know it. He was afraid, a trembling reverence that acknowledged the terrifying proximity of the holy. How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. In the first light of morning, Jacob took the stone that he had put under his head and set it up for a pillar. He poured oil on its top, a primitive anointing, a consecration of this thin place where heaven had touched earth. And he called the name of that place Bethel, the house of God. But its former name was Luz. And he made a vow, a response to the divine promise, a covenant of his own. If God will be with me and will keep me in this way that I go, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone, which I have set up for a pillar, shall be God's house. And of all that you give me I will give a full tenth to you. The fugitive had become a pilgrim. The grasping supplanter had met a grace he could not manipulate. He had set out running from a brother's hatred, he now resumed his journey with a divine escort, his heart forever marked by the vision of the latter. He went on his journey, and after many days, he came to the land of the people of the east. He saw a well in a field, and there were 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it, for out of that well the flocks were watered. The stone on the well's mouth was large, and only when all the flocks were gathered would the shepherds roll it away. And as he spoke with them, behold, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. She was beautiful in form and face. When Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban his mother's brother, a strength born of destiny surged within him. He went single-handedly to the great stone and rolled it from the well's mouth, a feat of prodigious strength that spoke of a heart captivated. Then he watered the flock of Laban his mother's brother. He kissed Rachel, and wept aloud. He told her that he was Rebekah's son, her kinsman. And she ran and told her father. When Laban heard the news of Jacob his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. For a month, Jacob stayed and served him. Then Laban, a man as shrewd as his nephew, said, "Because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful in form and face. Jacob, his heart given completely, answered, I will serve you 7 years for Rachel your younger daughter. Laban agreed. It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man, stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. But when the 7 years were fulfilled, Laban, the master of deception, prepared a feast. And when evening came, he took his daughter Leah, the elder, the one with the weak eyes, and brought her to Jacob in the veiled darkness of the wedding tent. And he went into her. In the morning, behold, it was Leah. The deceiver had been deceived. The supplanter had been supplanted. The poetic justice was perfect and cruel. Jacob's anger was righteous and fierce. What is this you have done to me? Did I not serve with you for Rachel? Why then have you deceived me? Laban's answer was smooth, a justification woven from local custom. It is not so done in our country, to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. Jacob, trapped by his own desire and the cunning of his uncle, agreed. He completed Leah's bridal week, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. And he loved Rachel more than Leah. He served Laban another 7 years. The Lord saw that Leah was hated, unloved, overshadowed by her radiant sister. And he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, a son, for she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. But he did not. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me this son also. She called his name Simeon, hearing. Again she conceived and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband will be attached to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi, attached. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah, praise. And she ceased bearing. Jacob, the lone fugitive, was now the father of 4 sons. The company of peoples was beginning to form in the crucible of a complex, painful family dynamic. The promise was being fulfilled, son by son, in the house of the deceiver, under the watchful, calculating eye of Laban. The exile was proving to be a forge, where the selfish youth was being hammered into the patriarch of a nation. 2 7-year servitudes were completed, yet Jacob's sojourn in the house of Laban was far from over. The seasons turned, and his household grew, a living testament to the God of the latter who was indeed with him. But the field of his labors was a field of thorns, sown with the cunning of his uncle. Seeing that Jacob's blessed presence multiplied his own flocks, Laban changed his wages 10 times, a master of shifting deals and hollow promises. The tension between them thickened, a silent war fought over spotted lambs and streaked goats. Jacob, the quiet man of tents, had become a master herdsman, his patience forged into a sharp, strategic wisdom. He set peeled rods before the breeding flocks, and through this divinely guided breeding, the strong of the flock became his, while the weak remained Laban's. The wealth of the deceiver was transferred to the deceived. The Lord blessed Jacob exceedingly, and the man became increasingly rich, possessing large flocks, female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. But the countenance of Laban's sons was no longer friendly. "Jacob has taken all that was our father's," they muttered, "and from what was our father's he has gained all this wealth." And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you." The command was a summons home. The promise of the latter, "I will bring you back to this land," was now an imperative. It was time to face the past. It was time to face Esau. Jacob called Rachel and Leah to the field where his flock was, away from the ears of their father's household. His voice was grave. "You see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, yet he has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me." He told them of the dream, of the divine directive to depart. Rachel and Leah, their inheritance squandered by their father, answered with one voice, "Is there any portion or inheritance left for us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do." So Jacob set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the wealth he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. And with a final act of defiance, Rachel stole her father's household gods, the teraphim, a secret theft of his spiritual authority. They fled. They crossed the Euphrates and set their faces toward the hill country of Gilead. 3 days later, Laban discovered the flight. He pursued Jacob for 7 days, overtaking him in the hill country. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." When Laban caught up, his accusation was a masterpiece of wounded pride. "What have you done, that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why did you flee secretly and trick me, and not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? You have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.'" A frantic search for the stolen gods ensued, but Rachel, seated on the camel's saddle which concealed them, pleaded her monthly condition and was not searched. The theft remained hidden. Then Jacob's anger, held in check for 20 years, erupted. "What is my offense? What is my sin, that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night." The confrontation ended not with violence, but with a covenant of separation. They set up a heap of stones, a pillar, a boundary. Laban called it Jegar-Sahadutha, and Jacob called it Galeed, both meaning heap of witness. They ate a meal there by the heap, a tense, formal feast, and in the morning, Laban departed with a final kiss for his daughters and grandchildren. He returned to his place, and Jacob went on his way. But the greater confrontation lay ahead. The messengers Jacob sent to his brother Esau in the land of Seir returned with terrifying news. "We came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him." Fear, cold and primal, gripped Jacob. The memory of Esau's bitter oath flooded back. He was terrified and distressed. He divided his company into 2 camps, thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape. Then Jacob prayed. It was the prayer of a man stripped bare, a man no longer relying on his own cunning. "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, 'Return to your country and to your kindred, and I will do you good,' I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, 'I will surely do you good, and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude.'" He prepared a massive gift for Esau, a stream of pacifying wealth, hundreds of goats, sheep, camels, cows, and donkeys, sent in droves with space between them, each servant instructed to say, "They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau. And behold, he himself is behind us." He sent his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons across the ford of the river Jabbok. He sent everything he had across. But Jacob himself remained alone on the other side of the stream, in the deep, dark valley. And a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. It was no dream. It was a physical, exhausting, brutal struggle in the dust and the gravel by the river. A grapple in the profound solitude of the night. This was no angel on a ladder, a beautiful vision. This was a divine antagonist, a being of immense power meeting him in the heart of his fear, in the core of his identity. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Yet Jacob would not let go. The supplanter, the grasper, the striver, held on with a desperate, tenacious faith born of a lifetime of struggle. Then the man said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob, panting, in agony, his body broken but his spirit fiercer than ever, replied, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." The grasper had finally grasped for the right thing. He had met God not in a dream, but in the dirt. He had wrestled not for a birthright or a blessing stolen from man, but for a blessing earned in the crucible of direct confrontation with the divine. So the man said, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." The name was a confession, supplanter, heel grabber, deceiver. Then the voice spoke, the same voice that had spoken at the ladder, now speaking a new identity into being. "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men, and have prevailed." Israel, he who strives with God. Jacob, now Israel, asked, "Please tell me your name." But the being replied, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And he blessed him there. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, for I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered. The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. He was a changed man. The smooth man was now marked with a limp, a permanent reminder of the night he wrestled and would not let go. He was no longer just Jacob, he was Israel. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. He arranged his family, putting the maidservants and their children first, then Leah and hers, and Rachel and Joseph last. Then he himself went on ahead. He bowed himself to the ground 7 times, a gesture of profound submission. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. The wrath of 20 years had melted away, dissolved by the providence of God and the transformation of a brother. Esau looked at the women and children. "Who are these with you?" Jacob said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Then the maidservants, Leah, Rachel, and their children came near and bowed down. Esau asked, "What do you mean by all this company that I met?" Jacob answered, "To find favor in the sight of my Lord." Esau said, "I have enough, my brother, keep what you have for yourself." But Jacob insisted, his words now filled with a newfound grace. "No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand. For I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Please take my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough." Thus he urged him, and he took it. The brothers were reconciled. Esau returned to Seir, and Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and then safely to the city of Shechem in the land of Canaan. He had returned. The exile was over. The fugitive had become a prince, the deceiver a patriarch, the grasper a man who had held on to God. He was Israel, and the story of the nation that would bear his name had truly begun. And so the chronicle of the fathers, the Sefer ha-Yashar, turns its page. The journey of Israel, the one who wrestled with God and prevailed, is etched into the stars, a testament to a promise that would shape the destiny of nations. But every story seeks an echo in the hearts of those who hear it. If this saga of faith, struggle, and transformation has moved you, if the visions of the ladder and the wrestle by the Jabbok have lingered in your mind, then let your voice become part of this ongoing chronicle. Subscribe to this channel, so you may walk with us as we continue to unfold the ancient records. Leave a like, if you will, as a marker on the path, a stone of witness like the altar at Bethel, showing that you passed this way and found meaning here. And we invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Which moment spoke to your spirit? Was it the binding of Isaac, a father's terrible faith? The vision of the heavenly ladder, bridging earth and heaven? Or the profound struggle that forged a prince from a supplanter? Your reflections are the modern campfire where these ancient tales are kept alive. Your engagement ensures that these timeless voices are not forgotten, but continue to be heard, generation after generation. Thank you for listening.